This chapter will be a basic skills review. In this lesson, we're going to be working with percentages. Okay, hi everybody. In this lesson, we're going to take a look at percentages. Okay, we're going to work with percentages and just review them. And so just remember that percentages are fractions out of 100. Okay, so when you see that little symbol right there, okay, with the two little circles there, that means out of 100, just like it says here. So 75% is really 75 over 100. Now, when we do that, the reason why we do that is because 100 is a nice big number. It gives us a lot of opportunities to kind of divvy it up, right? Like if we were to talk about things out of 10, well, 10 doesn't give us many ways of divvying it up. It doesn't really fine division. So like if the only mark you could ever get was like 10%, 20%, 30% or whatever out of 10, 1 out of 10, 2 out of 10, 3 out of 10, that doesn't really give you that much of a nice scale division, but 100 does. There's a lot of opportunities to give you good information here. Now, one of the things that's so convenient about working with percentages here is, for example, converting percentages to decimals is very, very easy to do. Because if that symbol right there means out of 100, or divided by 100, anytime we divide by 100, all that really means for us is we need to move the decimal point, which would be right here, 2 units to the left. And it means exactly the same thing. Okay? So like it says here, to convert a decimal, divide the number by 100. Okay? So let's go through and take do some of the examples here. So first of all, you have to identify with all of these things where the decimal is. And so if you don't see it, it's at the end, right? If I don't see it, it's at the end. If I don't see it, it's at the end. Now in this case, I do see it. Okay? So that one I didn't have to write in there. And so now what I'm going to do is divide that by 100. So this becomes 30 over 100. And I move the decimal, which is right here, 2 places over, so I get 0.3. 26, that's 26% is 26 over 100. And I've identified that the decimal's right there, and I move it 2 units to the left, so 0.26. 132% is 132 over 100. And again, I identify that the decimal is here at the end of the number if I didn't see it. And I move it 2 to the left, which puts it between the 1 and the 3, so 1.32. Here, 540%, that's 540 divided by 100, but I identified that the decimal was here, and dividing by 100 is going to move that 2 units to the left, which is going to put it between the 5 and the 4. And remember, if I've got a 0 trailing at the end here after the decimal, I don't need to write it, okay? I don't need to write it there. Here, this is going to be an interesting one here because 2%, which is 2 out of 100, again, I'm going to move the decimal 2 to the left, but notice that puts it to the front of the 2, and then that moves it 1 space over. So it opens up this spot right here, which means it's going to be 0.02. I needed to put another place value in between where the decimal ended up in the 2. Here, I'm going to get a very similar sort of thing. 0.7% is going to be 0.7 out of 100. And I'm going to move the decimal 2 places over. Well, it's right here right now, so I'm going to move it 1 over. And then I got to move it 1 more spot, so I'm going to open up another place value there. So 0.0, and then that 0, 7. Okay? Because I got to move the decimal 2 over, so I got to move it 1 to the other side of this 0, and then I got to move it 1 over, which is going to introduce, like I said, that other 0. Okay. Now, sometimes we want to go backwards. We want to go from decimals to percentages. Okay? And so we just need to know how to convert back here. Now, it's a pretty simple process here. When we go from a decimal, I said that backwards. When we go from a percentage to a decimal, we divide by 100. The decimal moves 2 places to the left here. But if we want to go from a decimal to a percentage, we're going to multiply by 100, which means moving the decimal 2 places to the right. Okay? It's the exact opposite work here. So the first thing we want to do is, in every case here, is identify where the decimal is. And for all of the questions and the examples we're going to do, I think the decimal is quite clearly seen there. It's quite visible. So what we're going to do here is we're going to multiply these things by, basically by 100%, by 100. So we're going to move that over, okay? So I'm going to multiply this by 100, so I'm going to move the decimal 2 places over, and so this is going to become 45, or actually, well, yeah, 45 out of 100 is really what this is. I guess this is another way of thinking about it. This is 45 hundredths. This is 45 hundredths. That's what that means. So it's like I'm multiplying the number by 100 to get that 45. And then 45 over 100 simply means 45%. That's what we mean by that. I was going to do that a different way here, but it turns out this is probably a better way to think about it. Okay? Now, again, to get that numerator, I multiplied this by 100. I moved the decimal 2 places over. But I still want this to be out of 100. I'm not changing the number. I can't write something different here. But remember, that percentage symbol takes the place of dividing by 100. So here, I've got 2/10. Okay? Or, because I can do this, because I can just put a 0 there and it doesn't change anything, I can think of this as 20 hundredths. That's the place value that's in, 20 hundredths. Okay? Or if you're not sure what I mean by that, well, let's put 100 in the denominator. Okay? So it's like having this number, it's like doing this. Over here I had 0.45 over 1. I'm going to multiply numerator and denominator by 100. This might be now that I think about it, the best way to go about doing this. Multiply numerator and denominator by 100. So move the decimal 2 to the right. It becomes 100. So I multiplied numerator and denominator by the same thing. So 0.45 is the same as 45 over 100. And then instead of writing over 100, we write percentage. So I'm going to multiply numerator and denominator here by 100. That's going to get me 20 because the decimal is going to move 2 places. And then 20 over 100 is the same as 20%. 1.6, again, I'm going to make this over 100. I'm going to move the decimal 2 places to the right. So it's going to be 167 over 100, which is 167%. 6.5. Okay, over 1, I'm going to multiply numerator and denominator by 100. Now that means moving the decimal 2 places to the right. Now, I can move it 1 to the right. It's going to put me to the right of the 5. And then I'm going to put one more spot there, one more place value there. So I have to put a 0. So 650. So it's going to be 650%. Here, 0.09 over 1. I'm going to multiply numerator and denominator by 100. I'm going to move the decimal 2 units over. That's going to put it right behind the 9. So that's the same as 9%. And over here, okay, this is going to be an interesting one. This is over 1. I want this to be over 100. So I'm going to multiply the numerator by 100, and that's going to just move the decimal 2 places to the right. Still doesn't get it very far here. It's still going to be 0.81 or 0.81%. That one's quite small. Okay, now that we can convert back and forth between decimals and percentages and whatnot, let's use percentages to find like these fractions of a number, percentages of a number. So to calculate a certain percentage of a number, we must calculate the actual number the percentage represents. So the decimal version, we got to use that. So we got to convert to the decimal here. And then we're going to multiply the decimal by the number. Basically, when you see that word of almost always means multiply. Okay? So here, and we're going to round to the nearest tenth. I'm going to use my calculator quite a bit here, though. 75% of 12. So first of all, 75%, that means 75 over 100. So I'm going to write that as, I could write it as 75 over 100. And then I'm going to multiply that by 12. Or I could write that as 0.75 multiplied by 12. Either way, on my calculator, I'm going to put 0.75 times 12, just to the other side here, and I get 9. So 9 is 75% of 12. Here, this is going to be 16 over 100 multiplied by 52. That's what we mean by 16% of 52. So 0.16 multiplied by 52, and I'm just going to put that over here, 0.16 times 52, and I get 8.32. And the question said round to the nearest hundredth. And there we go. To the nearest hundredth. That's what I needed. 8.32. Okay. Up here, 40% of 79.95. So that's going to be 40 over 100. Multiplied by 79.95. Let's move the decimal 2 units over. So 0.4 multiplied by 79.95. And that becomes calculator work. Whoops. Sorry. And I get 31.98. 150% of 62. Now, because this is larger than 100%, I know that the value is actually going to be bigger than 62, than what I'm seeing here. So this is 150 over 100 multiplied by 62. There's the of becoming multiplication. Move the decimal 2 over, and I get 1.5 times 62. So I'm sorry, I keep doing that. 1.5 times 62, and I get 93. Over here, 200% of 18.67, so 200 out of 100, multiplied by, there's my of, 18.67. So move the decimal 2 to the right, so it'll be 2.00, multiplied by 18.67. And we just plug that into the calculator, and we get 37.34. And then finally here, 5% of 18, so 5 out of 100, multiplied by 18. 5 out of 100 means I'm going to move the decimal 2 units to the right here. Now the decimal, remember, if I don't see it, is just to the right of the number. So I'm going to move it 1 to the right, sorry, 1 to the left, and then another spot to the left, which is going to open up a 0 for me. So 0.05 times 18, and we get 0.9 as a result. And so there you go. It's pretty straightforward. Remember, the percentage symbol there tells you that it's out of 100, and of means multiply. Okay, and now we're going to go the other way. Now we're going to have two numbers here, and we're going to figure out what percentage one number is of the other. So to calculate what percentage a number is of another number, we divide and then convert the outcome to a percentage. Which basically means when we divide, we're going to get a decimal, okay? And then we're just going to multiply it by 100 here. So we're going to round to the nearest tenth of a percent where necessary. So 15 out of 60 is really going to be, wow, don't know why I did that. Okay, 15 out of 60, okay? And so when we do that, 15 divided by 60, you're going to get 0.25. So what we want to do now is convert that to a percent. Now, remember, this is the same, okay, because of where the decimal is. This is 25 so this is the same as over 1, multiply numerator denominator by 100, move the decimal 2 places over, and so that's 25%. So basically, all we got to do here. So 62 out of 18, 118. Okay, well, I do that on my calculator. 62 divided by 118. Hoo boy, and I get a big number here. It says round to the nearest tenth of a percent. Okay, tenth of a percent, which means I'm doing this. I get 0.52542. Goes on forever here. Now, I'm going to end up moving the decimal 2 places to the right to convert it to a percentage there. So what that means is I'm really just focused on 0.525 out of 1. I'm going to multiply that by 100, numerator denominator, to get 52.5 out of 100, which is the same as 52.5%. Okay, 50 out of 40. Now, that's a weird one. Remember, it's whenever we say out of, that number there at the back end, that goes in the denominator. And so 5 divided by 4, 50 divided by 40 is going to be 1.25. I want to convert this to a percentage. So this is out of 1, so I'm going to multiply numerator denominator by 100 to get 125 over 100. I'm just moving the decimal 2 places to the right. And then to communicate that that's a percentage, we just go 125%. Okay, remember, that means out of 100. 132 out of 67. So 132 out of 67. I'd be surprised if that works out to be a nice number. And it didn't. So this is going to be 1.970149. Keep going here. If I want this to the nearest tenth of a percent, Remember, I'm going to move my decimal 2 over, so I kind of want all that. So it's going to be 1.970, roughly, approximately. And so I'm going to make this, this is over 1. I'm going to make this over 100 by multiplying numerator and denominator by 100. Now, to the nearest tenth is going to be 0.0. But actually that, and I know that you don't necessarily need to write stuff that shows up after the decimal like that, but that first one, when it's the digit right after the decimal, that actually communicates a little something to me. So we're going to say 197.0%. 16 out of 900. 16 divided by 900 is 0. Oh, here we go. 0.1777777 and so on forever. Okay, so again, if I want to the nearest tenth of a percent, when I turn it into a percentage, I'm going to move the decimal 2 to the right. So I kind of want that 7 to pop up. So it's going to be 0.01, and you know what? I'm going to round that to 0.018 over 1. Multiply by 100, and I'm going to get 1.8 out of 100. Okay, because I got to move the decimal 2 places. So the 0 kind of disappears, and I move it between the 1 and the 8. And then that is going to be the same as 1.8%. And then 2 out of 250, 2 divided by 250 is 0.008. And actually, that's exactly it. Okay, so that was nice. This is like over 1. Multiply numerator and denominator by 100. So the decimal is going to move 2 to the right, so 0.8 out of 100. And that just becomes 0.8%. And so there you go. So I hope after going through this and then doing some practice on your own that gives you a little bit more confidence working with percentages.